Kevin from Anti-Dog Trainer, where he makes a point regarding myself, that I had no issue praising him in previous videos simply because I was making videos criticizing Mark DeBose and Robert Hines. Absolutely right. Okay, I'm not, I'll be the first to say that I was, wrong. And that's a error in judgment on my part. Absolutely, 100%. So
Right.
let's,
Right.
I'm going to show the little clip here of leading
Sure.
into your discussion, your debate with Mark DeBose, and I'm going to bring up a little clip here in a moment here and get this. You guys had a great discussion. I thought, watching that debate. But there's a point, there's an example, a point there in that discussion where you're providing context. So I'm going to put up another clip here, which I found very interesting, with Mark DeBose, who he made an appearance with here at one point.
The dog daddy.
Pumping this guy out, just doing Mark DeBose. You get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trainers out there doing the same thing. Let's talk through this, and let's provide some proper context here, and let's come to, if we really care about dogs, like we should, everything should halt until we figure out, okay, what's going on. But see, the culture is so corrupt that it's like that's not happening. So go over to another character here briefly here. I can't help it. So you've actually exposed quite a bit of stuff here recently with some of these guys on making comments.
Huge problem. And it's obfuscating the truth from.
I give you props here because there's been several examples where you've brought forward some very profound insight into some of these individuals. Because again, when I saw that, I was like, hold on here a second. I just saw people out there. No, I'm still waiting to get a response back from Mark DeBose on my invitation to have a debate discussion, and that's so I'm not hearing anything yet. I've made it very clear I'm going to have it, but because again, that's a point I'm going to be talking a lot about his journey. I responded to that, and then again, just very similar to these Kevin, these other trainers who want to have a debate with me after putting up videos launching very personal attacks, even with Upton, talk about my family. Okay. And I responded at the time to just total slander, just lies, responded. But then it got to the point where no, absolutely would never go on and have a debate because, you already established what the debate's going to be about. Okay. It's not going to be about the information I put up in terms of responding to that directly, because that's going to be my entire focus on a debate, on a conversation. Whereas the conversation that they're going to have, including someone like Kevin, because you can just see it in how he responds to all this, is just about trying to get personal. It's all, for me, it's about the information, moving forward from there. He clearly didn't watch any of my work with dogs before coming to this judgment. Yeah, he's right. I did not. I glanced at it, but I did not go and do a proper audit of it. I didn't. And I'll bring up briefly here this, because again, he's mentioned this name, and so I wanted to, and I understand this isn't about slamming anyone, this isn't about, but this is about understanding, okay, people's, approaches, where they get their ideas from. So you go into Brandon Fouché here, and it's very Cesar Millan-like, okay? You'll see a lot of dogs off leashes, interacting. So we talk about this social aspect of, dogs, that dynamic of dogs, hierarchy, dominance, right? How they interact with each other. But here's the problem, okay? We're going to talk about this thing about kind of letting the dogs kind of work it out, is the issue about how that transfers over to the human side of things, okay? To the aspect of how dogs connect with the human, okay? The interplay of that. And you'll see a lot of this, trainers will use this. This is, again, very Cesar Millan-like. I'll bring up another example of this through, and he wants to talk about pride being the issue with the dog training world. Sure. I mean, I talk about the issue about arrogance, pride, but here's the difference. I'm very specific as to what the central core issue is. Okay, there's no getting around it. That's why I said that question is hanging out there, and that's it. Am I guilty of pride at times? Getting in the way of stuff? Absolutely. I'm as guilty of just about anything people want to level at times. But with myself in terms of checks and balances, and this is why again at times I've pulled down videos. Nothing I put up was wrong whatsoever, but the issue about the motives to do things. Okay, why I'm doing stuff. Okay, and pride is a big issue in just about everything. I say at the root of all sin comes pride. So pride is definitely a major issue. This is why again I talk about moving forward and responding to all this garbage, but at the same time, why it is that I'll remove comments. It's my own checks and balances. It's very hard when people come at you a certain way to not get cute to respond. I'm guilty of that for sure. I'm having the conversation that Kevin certainly isn't going to have that way. He isn't going to confront it because it forces him, just like all these other trainers, into a trade-off situation. They're not going to make it. Okay, and I talk about the issue about pride and arrogance. Well, these trainers, what they're doing here with just wanting to get personal, right? Personal attacks, but they won't touch that question. They won't respond to it because they can't. I put it right up front and center. There's your problem. It goes right to the heart of the matter.
So Dale continues to lie and misrepresent what took place between him and I. And it's easy to do when you block the people you make videos on. It's easy to lie and misrepresent things and create a narrative about what happened when the person you make the video on can't actually come onto the video you made about them to provide some clarification or to rebut the bullshit that's coming out of your mouth. Now Dale wants to be about the information, yet he didn't even watch the content, which he admitted in the clip that you heard. He did not even watch my content before he started to push me and promote me, and that was only because, as he stated, I was making videos about the people he doesn't like. Now, let's get to his Facebook question, because he thinks that this is like the end-all be-all, when I have very specifically answered this question, which he continues to lie about the fact that I have not. His question on his Facebook reads, what is the criteria balanced, force-free, radical behaviorist, permissive, play, drive-based dog trainers? Now, I want to point something out. Dale has put me in a category of my own. I don't fit into any of these categories, so he calls me the, quote, Cesar Millan type. That just goes to show that the bullshit he's saying doesn't even apply to me. He has to put me in a category of my own because I don't fit into any of these other fucking groups. So that alone should tell you something. But he goes on, what these trainers are using to establish that the perceptions of dogs are changing the right way, which, in his words, a diminishment of unwanted behavior within the framework of superficial response.
Because the question I had put up on my Facebook page, I put it right up there for everyone to see, is that's really the foundational question. What is the criteria these trainers are using to establish that the perception of these dogs are changing the way they think they are within the framework of response?
Well, I mean, Dale, I have my own criteria that I use to determine whether or not the perceptions of a dog is changing, but it's not through the framework of a response because I don't use motivating agents the way a lot of other people do. Like, I don't use food, I don't use toys, I don't bribe dogs, I'm the motivator. So everything to me comes down to the social interaction. So it depends on the dog in question. It depends on the issue we're trying to work through. It depends on the owner. So if all the dog needs is some rules and boundaries to follow and there's a lack of structure in the home, well, the criteria for me then is if we implement the necessary boundaries and we implement the necessary structure, and maybe there are times where the dog engages in a power struggle because now we're adding things that weren't there before, and we're taking a more authoritative approach. It then comes down to, will the owner do what's necessary to win those power struggles, to take control from the dog back into your own hands? But the criteria should be, is the dog showing respect to the rules consistently? Is the dog respecting the boundaries consistently? Is the dog adhering to my leadership, direction, and guidance consistently? Is the dog challenging me? Is the dog engaging in power struggles? Is the dog trying to make demands of me? Are we seeing a diminishment of the behaviors that I was called for? And is that diminishment consistent over a long period of time? And then, of course, the state of mind of the dog. Is the dog now becoming more relaxed, more calm, more confident, more balanced? Now, according to Dale, the answer is that there is none. It is all based on inherently flawed assumptions, which is the reason why dogs can look fantastic as they respond for treats and other motivators. Well, I don't do this, Dale. I don't use food to motivate dogs. I don't use toys. I don't use anything but me. Which it's about the relationship. I find it funny that you consistently and repeatedly say that I don't address the real issue when my entire channel is dedicated to teaching people about the social hardwiring of dogs. It's even on my homepage, on my banner. Now you go on to say the criteria that is missing when it comes to changing the perceptions of the dogs the right way and a better relationship for the dogs and their owners comes through an interaction-based approach. Dale, everything I do comes down to the social interaction. The back and forth between you and the dog. That is where the relationship lives. The way you interact with the dog. That is the entire foundation of everything I teach. So for you to sit here and claim that I don't address the real issue and you want to continue to lie about it really says everything. Your role, which you say your role, and I talk about your role all the time, and the process which creates change is to find the right way through of course, it's to find the right way through Dale's original one-of-a-kind system of training. Well, Dale, I have news for you. I've had several people reach out to me after listening to the talk that I had with you and after listening to some of my videos about you. These people have come to me because you couldn't help them. And the consistent criticism I hear from people is that nobody understands what the fuck you're saying, Dale, but yet you refuse to help your client. I mean, these are people that paid you. It's your responsibility to make sure that the people who pay you understand what the fuck you're saying. And yet you still are so arrogant to not take that information in and maybe think about how it is that you could change the language that you use. I had someone recently tell me that the way you told them to use a leash wasn't helping them. There comes a point, Dale, when you have to sit down and acknowledge that maybe you don't have all the answers. Maybe your way isn't the only way. Maybe you haven't got it right. I want to point out too that Dale loves to just continue to make videos about people, but what you can find maybe 1 or 2 videos of him with his own personal dog. What does that tell you? You won't debate because you want to feign moral superiority. Oh, he's mean. He's so mean. He called me a poopy head. He's so mean. I won't debate him. It's personal. Well, Dale, I've never once mentioned your fucking family in any of my videos. Any of my comments, nothing. I've addressed you specifically, the things that you promote. I have not talked to you any different than I talked to Mark, than I talked to Robert, than I talked to Christoph Cluxton. I want to point out here too that it says right here on his post that there's 14 comments, but if you go and switch up the criteria of viewing those comments, they're gone. Dale blocks the comments even on his Facebook post. But this is also coming from a guy who thinks he's better than Cesar Millan, thinks he's better than Brandon Fouché, thinks he's got some kind of god tier status when it comes to handling dogs, and that's just not the case, Dale. Doing what you do with the leash requires no fucking skill whatsoever. And you could say that's personal all you want, but that's just somebody calling it like they fucking see it, and other people who have gone to you for help giving that sort of feedback saying it didn't help them either. So Dale, I'm gonna actually challenge you. Why don't you show people the end result of your process, the end result of your understanding? You know, you've been on YouTube how many years? You don't even have one single video of you out in public with your own dog. Every video is in your garage. So if you want people to take you more seriously, why don't you actually do that instead of spending all your time criticizing everybody else and lying and misrepresenting the truth? People can see right through this whole moral superiority act that you've got going on, because really the truth is that you're a fucking coward.